Honestly, let's get into that first before we get into the WrestleMania review, which we have a lot to say about. But I want to open with this because they did open actually WrestleMania weekend with this news on Saturday. Came completely out of nowhere. I was waiting in line to get into the building, and someone I was with said, "Oh yeah, Sean Ross Sapp just tweeted that WWE bought AAA." I'm like, "That's definitely not real." Like, obviously, that's a fake tweet. Like, people put out there's Wrestle votes and then there's Wessel votes. We've been caught in that before. I'm thinking, obviously it's fake. And then he showed me the tweet. I'm like, holy fuck, they actually did. AAA, obviously one of the long-standing Mexican wrestling promotions, arch rival of CMLL, which AEW's actually been working with. But funnily enough, AEW was actually working with AAA when they first started. El Hijo del Vikingo, they were working with that. He was on AEW television because they were working with AAA. Kenny Omega was the AAA World Champion at one point. Ray Phoenix and Pentagon Jr. were the AAA World Champions or the AAA World Tag Team Champions. So they were working with them for a long time, and then they switched over to CMLL for whatever reason. But yeah, WWE now not only is working with AAA, but they actually outright own the promotion. They announced that same day they're doing a Worlds Collide show in June in Los Angeles, probably with main roster talent, but mostly NXT AAA coming up on June 7th, I believe. So this news came completely out of nowhere. Definitely of two minds on this thing, but I do want to get your instant reaction, Mr. Marceau, to WWE not only working with, but now outright acquiring AAA.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's kind of crazy. I think they're just trying to get their stamp on everything. I mean, obviously they've done a lot in the United Kingdom. They really haven't done a ton in Mexico, so not that I didn't see it coming, but I figured they try to get a bigger presence there. So obviously with this announcement, obviously winning AAA, now they'll have that kind of getaway to get to Mexico. But we've seen, like I said, they've been going to Canada a lot. The United Kingdom, they just did a tour. They're going back in the summer, so I think they're just trying to get everything they can. And doesn't look great for Tony, but I mean, I think they're just trying to grab anything they can and just run the wrestling world at this point.
I know, seriously. I mean, Tony Khan was already working with a ton of different promotions, and it's funny now because WWE owns AAA. They were working with TNA. That's exactly what AEW was doing a few years ago. They were working with TNA. They were working with AAA. Now they're working largely with New Japan and CMLL, among other promotions. Stardom, I believe. And now AAA is working with Marigold, which is the promotion that Julia came from. They outright own AAA, like I said, and they're working with Noah. So they're kind of both companies are expanding their global domination. And Triple H said years ago, there's this whole board, like this presentation board. If you go back and Google it, you can see what he was kind of envisioning at this point. They wanted NXTs all around the world. He mentioned NXT UK, which did end up failing to a certain extent. I mean, a lot of the stars from that show ended up becoming big stars. Tony Storm in a different promotion, but Tony Storm went on to become a big star. Gunther, a lot of people from that show. Pete Dunne, now on the main roster, doing well. Rhea Ripley, one of the biggest stars in the entire company, came from NXT UK. So NXT UK is no more, and they were going to brand it to NXT Europe, but that didn't go anywhere. And evidently, that's probably never coming to fruition. But does AAA, do they ultimately rebrand it as NXT Mexico? I think that would be completely unnecessary. Do you think they'll continue to run it as a separate promotion, or do they just close it entirely, a lot like they did with Evolve, which was a much smaller promotion, but it's worth mentioning, though?
It's a great question. I mean, it's such established name. I think it'd be kind of crazy just to change it and make it WWE Mexico or NXT Mexico. I think at this point you just run it as its own promotion and then just use it as like a feeder to either use your guys or grab guys they have and vice versa. But I think it'd be kind of silly to switch it to NXT just because AAA's been around for so long.
Yeah. No, I think that would just be unnecessary. I mean, I think they should just continue to run it as is. And I say that as someone who doesn't follow AAA. I've never watched one of their full shows. I've seen their talent on certain shows. I've seen Vikingo. We've all seen Vikingo. If you've watched AEW before, he's popped up a number of times there. I'm trying to find the AAA roster. Give me a second here. I saw some people on TikTok or on Twitter that were hold on. Wait, AAA, all five. I'm trying to find. There was a picture of all the talent that they had on their roster with Alberto El Patron. I saw Matt Riddle on there. Someone told me that Marty Scurll still works in AAA. Are we going to see any of these people pop up in WWE in the near future? Matt Riddle, Del Rio, Marty Scurll. They might just trim the fat and get rid of the people they don't need, right?
Yeah, I would assume so. I mean, I don't know who's on their roster, but I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. Like I said, depending on who they have there and what's going on, they could just trim it and kind of focus on what they need it for.
Yeah, I don't know if we need a Matt Riddle, Marty Scurll main event in NXT in 2025. I don't know if that would go over too well. So, yeah, I guess we'll see what they do with it. This Worlds Collide show is shaping up to be a lot of fun based on the talent they do have on their roster. Fernando, what's going on, dude? Thanks for joining us. Johnny said in the chat that the main event for that Worlds Collide show should be Vikingo versus Obafemi. That's got to be the main event, David versus Goliath. That sounds like an amazing match on paper to me.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great first match. Like I said, Vikingo and Oba, that'd be great.
That'd be sick. I know they had teased at Mania, which we'll get to, but they did tease Vikingo versus not Chad Gable, that's not his name, El Grande Americano. So very possible that this Americano gimmick lasts at least until then, and they do Vikingo and Chad Gable on that show. Sign me the fuck up on that. That would be awesome.